The most famous item, associated with the Vikings and connected, are the ships of the Drakkar. The dragon ship, or the ship of dragons, was a versatile ship, and was used by the Vikings, both in peacetime and in war often and extensively. The question arises, why did the Vikings build ships to this exact design? The Drakkar were ships, with a draft of under 1 meter. The Drakkar were built from various Scandinavian types of wood, which were particularly elastic, and able to cushion strong waves. Drakkars are powered by either sails or oars. The term Drakkar comes from the Old North Germanic language. The first part Drak can be translated me dragon. The second part Kar stands for the ship. Already at the beginning of the Viking raids, the Norsemen carved dragon heads from the wooden end of the bow. Why do the Vikings have the mythical creature of the dragon symbolized at the front of their ships? In this video, I tell you the story over the ships of the Vikings, the Drakkar. Here we go. General facts about Viking ships. Regarding the construction of the Drakkar, there was a small type, the Drakkar. This ship was only a fifth of the Drakkar size, but of the same type. On the Drakkar, according to the Old Norse legends, Eric the Red has discovered Greenland. Viking ships have an average of a length between 15 and 20 meters. The Drakkar was the larger type of Viking ships, could even reach a length of 35 meters. In the archaeological finds, these lengths were measured. The Drakkar were made for raids, naval battles, and also used for peaceful trade by the Vikings. A major strength of the Drakkar was its maneuverability in the shallow draft. Because of this, the Drakkar could not only sail the high seas, but also on rivers and lakes inland. The draft of a Viking Drakkar ship with a length of 35 meters, a crew of 50 men, had about a draft of 70 centimeters to 1 meter. This is how English, French, German, Belgian chronicles have described that the Vikings went down a river, and even with sails went up the river. The Drakkar, compared with non-Scandinavian ships, were incredibly fast. The Vikings were able to reach Britain within 5 days. Within 10 days the Spanish Straits of Gibraltar, and within 2 weeks Sicily. Because of this, Scandinavian explorers like Bjornar Ironside sailed with ease to southern mainland Spain. Or 100 years later, the famous Viking Leif Erikson to Canada, at the Bay o Meadow. Special myths, and the reputation of Drakkar. It was not only in the Nordic sagas that the Viking ships were adorned with mythical creatures at the front of the ship. In numerous Christian eyewitness accounts, dragon heads and other mythical creatures were mentioned on the Viking ships. So the Viking ships have among the ordinary citizens of the invaded cities gives the impression that they come straight from hell. As for example, when the Vikings landed in Northumbria in 793 AD, the chronicles of the monks described the Northmen as demons who came from the hell to punish the people for their sins. Some modern historical claim that the heads of the mythical creatures in front of the bow were removable. In addition, the dragons and mythical creatures' heads had the purpose of the status, underlined by the master of the vessel concerned. One theory is that the animal heads were only placed on the bow in war zones, in home ports and ports of allies. These were not installed. This happened out of religious motivation, so that Scandinavian gods, who behold the ship, and be not frightened, and bring mischief upon the crew of the ship. On each Viking longship Drakkar, was on each side left and right a row with down benches. Since the second type of propulsion was rowing, the rudder was attached to the stern of the ship. The ship was generally flat, when viewed from the side, which means the silhouette of the ship was harder to see from a distance, as with other sailing ships of that time. Especially in fog benches, the Viking ships could almost not be recognized. So the crew could sneak in silently, during an impending robbery. The Viking king Olav Tryggvason, around the year 980 AD, built one of the longest Drakkar. This ship had 36 rudders, which individually had a length of 6 meters. The length of this ship was about 43 meters long. On this ship could at least 50 Vikings have a place. According to the sagas and legends around King Tryggvason, on this ship were up to 100 men, and everyone had their own place to sleep. Today's archaeology. To this day, only a few Viking ships have been excavated by archaeologists. Therefore the classification into different types not very easy. In the year 1880 in Sandefjord Vestfold in Norway, a Viking ship, which dates back to the 9th century, was discovered and probably served as a funeral. Because of the many sacrifices, and the particularly decorative figure on the bow, was here probably an important person of the Vikings' buried company. This ship is now in the Museum Oslo in Norway. In 1904 a farm on the west bank of the Oslo Fjord, between Tønsberg and Horten in Norway, a Viking ship was excavated. Also known as the Oseberg ship. In a tomb built in 834 AD, there were 2 women, buried behind the mast of the ship. It was the third significant Norwegian find, after the Tunneship in the year 1867, and the Gokstad ship 1870. The Oseberg ship is still the richest, and most important find from the Viking Age. The construction of the ship Drakkar. They worked without a saw, only with axes, hammer and anvil, pliers, file and plane. The building materials used were mainly oak and pine. The tribes were fresh condition split along the fibers. Because the fibers were preserved, the good elasticity of the woods followed. They cut it in half for so long, until many thin yet stable boards of the same length with wedge-shaped cross-section were obtained. The individual boards were fastened with nails and the ship's interior was earthed out and the ship's hull sealed. When the ship was finished, it was dried in a shed. That was it today, to the famous ships of the Vikings Drakkar. I hope you liked the video. If yes, please leave a subscription and a thumbs up there. See you soon, your channel History Best.